Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talk series, brought to you by AKFI, the Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first organization, non-profit organization and industry consortium, uh, focus on bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. And of course, digital transformation includes AI. Actionable ESG Talk series bring together great minds to discuss the current and future state of ESG, sustainability, AI, and digital transformation. And I'm really delighted to have you, Katie, today for an in-depth discussion. Uh, let's take a minute for you to introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll proceed.
Great, Manuel. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Katie Neck. I am founder of Sustain Futures. We focus on AI and climate upskilling. The business is 3 years old now, and this year we have been nominated for the 2026 Earthshot Prize. I have also been recently appointed an ambassador to Anthropic, the company behind Claude, and this is for the sustainability and climate change community. And over the last 3 years, Sustain Futures has delivered future skills programs for companies like Arsenal FC, Dyson, Adobe, the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, the PIF, Shoesmiths, and SailGP, which has been a global academy. And previously to that, I had sustainability roles at McLaren in Formula One and consulting across businesses at Capgemini.
Oh, excellent introduction and amazing biography, Katie. You crossing the industries, which is rare in the sustainability world, right? Usually people are more in one or another part of the industry. So um, I'm not sure we have time today to go in every aspect of it, but there are a lot of names that I'm very curious to hear more about it. And that will lead sort of the first topic that I wanted to bring forward, which is trends in sustainability. From your, you know, first seat kind of vantage place, what do you see as current trends in sustainability with a focus on the supply chain, because that's the way our organization works?
Well, I'm quite an optimistic person, Manuel, so I am not being absorbed by the headlines. But in terms of trends, since maybe 2020, 2021, when sustainability was very cool and very trendy, obviously we've seen a bit of a lull in that over the last couple of years due to geopolitics, I would say. That hasn't meant that climate change has stopped impacting supply chains. And actually, the trend that I see right now is, especially in the UK and across Europe, is the heat waves that are impacting everyone personally. And I think that is a trend of making people more aware of the impacts of climate change, and they're personally and physically starting to understand how extreme weather at the moment, it's heat, in the winter obviously it will be colder temperatures and more storms and floods. I'm seeing that people are starting to understand and wake up that this is really impacting us as humans, but also supply chains as well. So for supply chain leaders, they now have valid use cases and examples of how disruption has been affecting supply chain. So it's very real now, but the solutions are starting to scale. All the technology exists. The capital isn't in the right places at the moment for innovations to truly scale. But there are real life examples now, which the board can't ignore.
Absolutely. And I was going to ask you if you think it's good news, no news, or bad news that sustainability is sort of dropping from the first page of newspapers. And as you indicated, by the way, and I should add, Washington suffered the same on the July 4th, the national holiday. There were cancellation of events because of heat, you know, extreme heat.
Yes, I think everything is being impacted now. I was in Mexico last week for the England game, which was delayed by 1.5 hours due to thunderstorms and lightning. So, even a big global event like July 4th or the World Cup is being impacted by extreme weather. However, your question about news and headlines, the headlines aren't giving the right picture because it's just talking about weather. It's not talking about extreme weather and these extreme weather events becoming more and more regular. So yes, we are seeing this in the news. However, there is still not a systemic connect to this becoming a more frequent event. We also have ourselves to blame for that as a sustainability community. The jargon and the language that we use is totally arbitrary to people outside of our echo chamber. So we talk about sustainability in one sentence, which we know is kind of conserving resources, reducing emissions. But then we talk about climate change, and there is a big disconnect between how those two things are related, and how we can start to make changes. Like if you talk about millions of tons of CO2 emissions, that's so arbitrary to so many people. But if you talk about heat stress and children not being able to go to school and people not being able to travel to work, then that becomes a bit more real.
No, absolutely. And actually, to make a point to what you said, many times I see confusion in the news between weather and climate. As you mentioned, climate measures the frequency of weather events, not the weather events itself. So do we get thunderstorms more frequently? Yes, it's a climate change
Yes.
over a period of, I think, 30 years, by the way. And the other point, yes, we sort of encapsulated in sustainability at least three major parts: environmental, people, and economic, right?
Mhm.
Profitability and so many times sustainability is misconstructed as changing of the economic system as opposed to be part of supporting the economic system to be better to the environment, better to the people, to the customers. So, but moving a little bit to what you are doing so effectively, and the question of skills. We talked about the weather and the climate. How about people?
Yes, Emmanuel, it's the most important element of this conversation, which is readiness for this. Like, this is inevitable. I think we are past, honestly, I think we're past the mitigation stage. I think we are heading into a much different environment for the planet. And I don't think people are ready for this, both personally and professionally. So, the way that we've been approaching skills at Sustain Futures is in three measures. One is green skills. This is climate fluency. This is understanding regulation, and this is getting prepared for change. Really, so green skills could be in a procurement function, understanding how to decarbonize a supply chain, which does sound technical to most procurement teams, but it's something that they're going to have to know because, as you know, of your experience in supply chains, farmers aren't able to grow the crops that they used to. Oil prices are going up. There's so much change and disruption in supply chains that those supply chain leaders, procurement teams, logistics, anyone that has something to do with the supply chain of an organization needs to have climate fluency to understand the risk that's coming to their business. It's inevitable. The second is AI. And AI is obviously part of every single conversation now. But we as a sustainability community are so rich in data, but we're not rich in data science skills. So a supply chain leader has a rich amount of data, probably across many platforms, lacking maybe supplier data. AI is the perfect example to be able to make that process autonomous, more efficient, and more beneficial to reporting and to obviously decarbonisation as well. The third is probably the most important thing, and that's mindset. And we've been very intentional and deliberate about having mindset in that conversation, because you can have the green skills, you can understand the climate, you can use AI, you don't need to code, you just need to be a human being to be able to explain things to Claude or whatever you're using. The third is mindset, and we're seeing this play out every single day across different seniority levels, across different industries, and some people don't yet have the right mindset to be getting ahead of this. And some people do. Some people are really stepping forward, championing, upskilling themselves, and really flying ahead of a lot of people. To anyone listening, if you are in a business that's using Copilot and you're writing your emails with Copilot, you are not upskilling. That is not using AI. That is it's a tool that your business has given to you, but no way is that using AI in the way that it can be used. So I would encourage anyone that's listening to have the right mindset. Just challenge yourself, be vulnerable. This is all new, but it's all inevitable, and it's all going to be disruptive to a business, both climate and AI. So do you have the resilience? Do you have the mindset to adapt? And do you have the curiosity and the vulnerability to be open to using these new tools? Because it's nothing like we've known before. The way that I work, the way that everyone is going to be working in the future is going to change. In the past, we have traveled to work, or now people work from home. You sit, open your laptop, you're typing, you're moving your mouse. AI can do most of that. AI can, anything you can do with your keyboard and with your mouse, AI can do, and it can probably do it better. But you are the expert. You have the expertise of what needs to be done. So you are remaining the human in the lead or human in the loop, and you are guiding this new technology to the outcomes that you need in your role.
Well, it's so much to unpack. My mind is going fast. On the agricultural and the environmental part, I was thinking about coffee beans, chocolate, dear to my heart. No, and olive oil in Italy, and so olive in Italy, and on and on and on. List of examples where the climate is visible, affecting the socio-economic, the social fabric of people all over the world. Absolutely. On the AI topic, I have to go for a full disclosure. I'm also an instructor and lecturer in Cornell, and part of my portfolio is amazingly and unexpectedly sustainability and AI. No, not connected, but you establish the connection, and we can have a whole session only on the role of AI. But one thought trying to share with you is I read recently about AI companies hiring people with hiring more people with background in philosophy great than actually it's the economist actually than in computer sciences. So maybe the next step is to get a few people with background in sustainability, as you mentioned, and the mindset, the right mindset to establish this disconnected actually parts between supply chain, and I'll go into that in a second, AI and data, because we two things. AKFI has alliances with organizations like ISCA, Big C. ISCA is the Supply Chain Education Alliance. Big C is the an organization that is very sort of unknown, but is the one which actually specifies the data centers, the hyperscalers. Everything you read in newspapers, or most of the things are based on the designs or people certified by this organization. So very important part of the AI. But we studied also AI in the context of supply chain. And we're actually working on a framework because we notice a big gap in the information transfer. We call it the sustainability transaction standard. All the sustainability is vertical. It's industry by industry, company by company. And the supply chains are horizontal. They're crossing industries and so on. So we're looking actually to how to promote this sustainability transaction standard, how to start the process of developing a standard to to make the transfer of this information efficient and economic, because it's a gap. So when I'm saying about AI cannot fill that gap. AI can just inform us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about systems thinking all the time. But now a systems thinking is coming back to the person, because you have to define the system, the process, the workflow that's kind of been invisible before, to get the data to where it needs to be.
Absolutely. And, again, we can have a whole track on system thinking. I do have a certificate from Cornell where I'm also instructor. And yes, absolutely. System thinking, it's fundamental. And I have a little, uh, sticky on my desk reminding me about thinking, system thinking. One thing which I also notice that we don't think the right way is we cannot go to the second, third level of unintended, what the economists call unintended consequences. So, I'll give you an example from sustainability. And the example is, as we clean up the air and the smoke and so on, we increase the solar absorption of the earth, which creates global warming. Well, what do we, so did we fix pollution? Yes, especially in European countries. And now we have to figure out how we manage a heat wave.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know it's so obvious, but the answer is more trees in urban areas. Last week in Mexico, we were very cool because there's so many trees in Mexico City, which houses 22 million people. And from the work that we've been doing in Saudi Arabia as well, their answer is planting, I think it's 2 trillion trees by 2030, because they know that their ambient temperature is going to increase, and to attract more water, more rain, more shade is going to cool, with more trees, it's going to cool down the ambient temperature, and obviously absorb more carbon as well for air quality.
Right. So exactly. But this is this system thinking process. As we, move to the next step, we find solutions, and we find new problems and new solutions to the problem. Also in India, they recommend to paint white the roofs. So use white paint instead of color paint, which absorbs more, for instance. That makes me thinking of black cars. So absolutely, there is, in you did do a perfect job at explaining these interconnections, right? Between, and now mindset, it's probably the most difficult. Almost I cannot touch it because I'm an engineer. So engineers are a class on their own of mindsets, right? We are problem solvers, and if we don't have a good problem to solve, we create a problem to solve.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not to talk against my profession. uh, and if we get more into the skill gaps and the experience you have with directly with your companies that you advise, you support, I'm not sure if you're teaching them actually, if you are actively involved in the education, or you are only involved in the uh, advisory.
Yeah, actively involved all the time. As founder, I have to do everything all the time. So yes, it's running the business, but also delivering sessions. We have an amazing group of facilitators that are experts across AI, across green skills. And across facilitation, which is encouraging new mindsets and curating learning environments that are creating impact. So we very actively haven't ever done e-learning. and we won't do e-learning as a business because we know, and I know from working in big corporate, that if you have mandatory ESG training or any mandatory training that you have to watch on a video, you are pressing the next button to get through it as quickly as possible. You're not absorbing anything, and it's pretty pointless. It's just compliance and tick boxing. So we are very deliberately the complete opposite of that. And the clients that we work with are receiving that very well and asking us for more of that as well. So from a business perspective, I'm sure investors would love me to scale quickly and get more customers and use videos, but we very actively decided not to do that. And recently, I've been quite grateful that we made that decision early on because everything is available on the internet now. Information is democratized. Unfortunately, a lot of academic papers are not yet, accessible and trained in our LLMs, which is a huge missing part of AI development. But any video can be created by AI now in a few minutes. So the barriers to entry for companies that are doing e-learning is now very low. So I'm very grateful that we have remained human, that we are doing, we still deliver virtually and in person, a hybrid model, but everything is live, everything is facilitated, and everything has the human at the center of it.
So it's more high, you feel and this is sort of what I see from academia, there is a trend to go back to hybrid or even face to face as a reaction of, you know, overwhelming number of courses you can take.
Yeah, absolutely. And having peers to learn with and conversations, debates in person, that is how you're making people feel. And that's what people remember more than stats on a video or on a page.
Right. And going a little bit deeper, I think we need to even change the way we teach and we communicate. And this is where AI comes in as an assistant. And we have to learn. We in instructors, right? In the
Mhm.
academia, we need to learn how to use AI as an assistant. I think we are on our own learning curve. Maybe a little bit about being an insider in Anthropic as an ambassador. How do you see this process?
So my role with Anthropic is completely voluntary and unpaid. So I'm an ambassador to the sustainability and climate change community. And what that means is hosting events for uh, people in our community, companies in our community. So it could be B Corp companies, SBTI approved companies, 1% for the planet, for example, and 501(c)s as well. So later on in the year, we'll be hosting an event for 501(c)s, and for people outside of America, that's charities and non-for-profits. And we'll be hosting a whole impact lab for 501(c)s that are supporting ocean restoration or anyone that is kind of doing conservation for the oceans. We're doing that down in Florida Keys, and Anthropic will be funding that. So that's my role with Anthropic, is making sure that the technology goes into the right places. Why did I choose to work with them, and why did they choose to work with me? It's because of the ethics and the morals around the company. So as a business owner, I have my own personal brand, but also the business's brand reputation to be responsible for. So partnering with an AI company obviously is contradictory to that. However, Anthropic have been designed by the human constitution. So their models and the way that you work with Claude is designed for human beings. So they won't be selling ads and keeping you hooked into this technology. Claude will kind of tell you when to stop or when to take a break or be very human back to you. They've just launched a big campaign around asking hard questions. So they are walking into and taking a step forward into those uncomfortable questions, and they are owning the conversation. And most of the leaders and both of the founders left ChatGPT or OpenAI because of the ethics. So they are a AI safety company first, and I genuinely believe that they are the good guys and girls in a bad race. Do I agree with AI being scaled the way it is? Absolutely not. However, I do believe that Anthropic have the right intentions, and they are being very open and encouraging this technology to be used in the right places, of which education obviously sits within that as well. So there's amazing resources, free courses that is provided by Anthropic for everyone, and there's also there's specific streams for educators as well to make sure that educators are well versed in the technology and using it in the best way they can. It's all free.
Right. And actually, free, it's only the starting, right? We can have Coursera courses free. The very important part is what attracts people to the topics and the education, and that goes back, circle back to the mindset. And I think the biggest effort for the sustainability, if we want to call it an industry, is not, but the sustain, and I hesitate to call it a movement because of sometimes bad connotations. But the sustainability is definitely requires a mindset, uh, and there are papers about generational mindset. They were, in my opinion, in my views, they were misinterpreted. They were saying, if you are young, you have to pay more for sustainability. That was a misdirected or a misguided recommendation for marketing. Uh, but I know, and we work with interns, we work with students in the Gen Z group that definitely have this mindset that is different, is clearly different, and I hope it will percolate in the socio-political, economical system eventually. And that's where Anthropic, I think, is coming. That's
Mhm,
uh, where they are the ones which are looking at AI in a much more different way than just a competition of who has the, you know, right AI, whatever right means.
mhm, mhm.
And going in AI and sustainability, that's again this gap, because we assume that data is available and is ready for AI. Data, my sort of one-liner is data. It's everywhere, but nowhere to be found. So it's in all kind of places. It's used in all kind of situations. But when I talk with the people in the industry, when I talk with the people, with the students, they basically say, well, yes, but it's under lock and key. Yes,
Mm,
but people don't want to give access to data because they are afraid about their jobs. So there is this mindset almost at this point reaching a sort of political level in the US at least, where
mhm,
saying AI is bad. AI is bad for the communities, bad for electricity, is bad for resources. So in some way, uh, they're saying AI is bad for sustainability, and it has to be corrected. You know, and one last thought on AI. I was saying before, engineers are to solve problems. AI has a major problem with electricity and cooling. It's
yes.
going to be solved. We went to mainframe computers in, 2, 3 generations of people to, look what you have on your table.
Mhm.
It's more powerful than many of the computers of the previous era.
Yeah, this is the most inefficient that AI is ever going to be, is today.
Exactly. The most inefficient and the most mispromoted, right? We're going to end up with a lot of data centers which will be under utilized.